Hello, welcome back to my channel if you're new here. My name is Mary and today's video is going to be my TBR for the month of January. So if you missed it, I did talk briefly about my goals for the new year in a video that I believe is called 2023 Channel Goals, and I will link that for you in case you missed it and you would like to see it. But in that video, I talked about wanting to bring back my TBR game, but do it in a way that made it work better for me. So we've got a couple of new ground rules for the game. Actually, I think just one. And that is that rather than drawing a card to tell me how many books I'm going to be reading at the beginning of every month, I am just going to read 4 books to start, 1 per week. That way I have some time to move, read around, and do some of the vlogs and other themed content that I had planned, because I was just getting really overwhelmed with trying to plan everything so far in advance, and not having any time to mood read was really like killing my ability to accomplish my TBR. So I was just sort of doing the TBR game at the beginning of the month and then not reading any of those books. The other adjustment that I've made is that I am trying to read down my physical TBR, which I didn't show you everything in that video, but I did have them stacked behind me. So I do plan on doing an updated owned TBR video at some point. But all of the books for this TBR I actually own already. None of them are from the library. So I'm not gonna stop using the library altogether. I very well may get ebooks or audiobooks of some of these books from my library, and I do still love to support my library, so I might still have holds come in that I want to go pick up and read. But hopefully with a lesser number of books, I will have more ability to move and mood read around. So without further ado, I'm just gonna hop into the first card pick of this round of Sorry. Okay, so since it's a new year, we are starting over here on the green start, and I'm gonna just do 4 card pulls to start us off with. And if we get sorries, obviously we'll add some, but I think 4 is a good number of books to read. That's like 1 per week. I might go up to 5 like I mentioned in my goals video, but we'll start here. And so, move forward 10. Sci-fi. The first space that I landed on was sci-fi, and for this I'm going to be reading Gathering Blue by Lois Lowry, which is a companion novel to The Giver, and it's like a dystopian YA / maybe even middle grade. I remember in 6th grade, I think my teacher, 5th or 6th grade, my teacher read us The Giver every day. I think it was either right before or right after recess, and I loved that book. I reread it in college, I want to say, or maybe in high school, and I really do think it's one of those series that translates well for adult readers as well as younger readers. So I'm hoping that this is the same. I remember my brother read, there's 2 or 3 books in addition to The Giver that I believe are all set in the same world, and this is one of them. This is the 2nd book, and it says it's a companion. Oh, this actually might be the 3rd. So I might actually do a little bit of research to make sure that it's okay for me to read this, but since it's a companion novel, I'm still planning on reading this. And it says, a companion to the Newbery Award winner, The Giver, and to Messenger. I'll read you the back since I don't know exactly what this is about. It says, Kira, an orphan with a twisted leg, lives in a world where the weak are cast aside. She fears for her future until she is spared by the all-powerful Council of Guardians. Kira is a gifted weaver and is assigned a task that no other community member can carry out. While her talent keeps her alive and brings certain privileges, Kira soon realizes that she is surrounded by mysteries and secrets. No one must know of her plans to uncover the truth about her world and to find out what exists beyond it. So that actually, on first read of the back, I've never read the back of this before, that sounds pretty much exactly like the plot of The Giver, so I'm very interested to see what happens in this book and what makes it different, or if it's set in the same community that The Giver was set in, set at a different time maybe, like maybe this is before the events of The Giver or after. I'm just curious to find out. So this is the first book I'm going to be reading in January. Move forward 5. A book with a blue cover. The second prompt that I landed on was to read a book with a blue cover, and for this I'm going to be reading Club Dead by Charlaine Harris, which is the 3rd book in the Sookie Stackhouse series. These are paranormal romances. It's what the television show True Blood was based on, and it's about Sookie Stackhouse, who is a waitress in Louisiana in this world where we know that vampires exist. And so the bar that Sookie Stackhouse works at actually supplies different blood types for vampires to come in at night and drink blood. And she begins a relationship with a vampire she meets named Bill. And Sookie also has the ability to read minds. There's that aspect of paranormalness, as well as vampires, as well as other creatures that you find out more about as the series goes on. These books aren't fantastic by any means, but I did buy a bunch of them from a half-price books last summer, I think, and I've been slowly working my way through them, so I would like to prioritize the series this year since I do own them, and I enjoy reading them. So I'm gonna continue to read this one. It kind of looks like it's cold weather because she's wearing a scarf. So we'll see. I don't know how closely this follows behind the second book, but I'm very excited to continue this series and see what I think about it once I get a little farther along. Move forward to contemporary. The third prompt I landed on was contemporary, and for that I'm going to be reading A Girl Like That. Sorry, it's upside down. A Girl Like That by Tanaz Bathina, I believe is how her last name is pronounced. And this is a YA contemporary that I got at Goodwill, I think, for like $1. And it doesn't have a dust jacket. It never did. So I will insert a picture of what the cover actually looks like here. This is, I believe, set in Saudi Arabia, and I don't know that I've ever read a book that was not a fantasy set in Saudi Arabia that was like contemporary, if that makes sense. But I think the premise of this book is it's two teenagers, and the girl, for whatever reason, is not up to the standards of the boy she likes' parents. And I think there's a car accident somewhere in it. So I don't really know that much about it. This is now the oldest book on my Goodreads TBR, or the book that's been on my Goodreads TBR the longest. And so I would really like to cross it off. I own it. I bought it like a year and a half or 2 years ago maybe, and it's time. So I'm gonna read this in January and we'll see how I feel about it. And the last one for Sorry this round is Move Forward 5 again. A new release. The last prompt that I landed on for Sorry this month was to read a new release. And for this, I'm going to be reading An Arrow to the Moon by Emily X.R. Pan, which I count a new release as anything that came out within the last calendar year. January is the first month of 2023, so if I only did 2023 releases, that would mean that I would have to read a book that came out in January, which I could do, but it kind of defeats the purpose of reading books that I own. So I hope you're okay with that. That's always been my rule, because it's harder to find new books at the library as well. But this is a YA fantasy, and I believe, if I'm not mistaken, I bought this book back in May when I was in Seattle. I will link the vlog where I showed it when I first got it. I read, what was the other book by her? The Astonishing Color of After by Emily X.R. Pan in 2019 or 2020. And it was one of my favorite books of the year. Now I can't remember which year that was, but I absolutely loved it. It's contemporary with a magical realism twist. I believe this is the same. And I think this is a combination of Chinese mythology combined with Romeo and Juliet. I could be wrong about that. I did not hear anything about this book after it came out. I heard a lot of people excited about it because a lot of people had read The Astonishing Color of After and really enjoyed it, but I have not heard anyone read this or what they said about it. So I bought it and then kind of forgot that I had it. Actually, what really happened is I intended to start it a long time ago, and so I had it in my backpack purse because I like to bring a book around with me. And then we moved and it just stayed in that purse because I stopped using that purse when I went to my job, because I use like an actual like purse bag thing rather than a gray like leather backpack. But I found this when I was getting stuff out from the move, and it had just been in there for that long. So I'm kind of bummed. It's got a little bit of denting. You can see that from the pages because it was scrunched and some of them I guess had bent over. So it's not looking the prettiest, but I do love this cover. I really, really liked Emily X.R. Pan's writing from what I can remember of The Astonishing Color of After. Again, that book really moved me, made me cry, made me feel all sorts of things. So I'm really hoping that this book is just as good as her first one. And that is the end of my TBR as far as Sorry goes. However, I am trying to participate in Buzzwordathon this whole year. So I've picked out a couple of books that fit the prompt for January, and the prompt in January is Life and Death. If you don't know what Buzzwordathon is, it's a readathon that is pretty much not monitored at all. It used to be, I think, like a month-long readathon or a week-long readathon. Kayla from Books and Lala hosts it, and people really love it, but she didn't like being in charge of it, so now she just gives prompts and is sort of like, do what you will with it. I think like it originally was supposed to be the first week of every month, but now it's just like read the buzzwords throughout the year if you can, but she does assign them a month, so I'm gonna try to read them within the month that she assigns it. But it's just for fun, which for me all reading is for fun, but this one especially is pretty lax and just for fun. However, when I was watching her video, I remember for the first prompt, I can't remember if I already said, January's prompt is Life and Death, and those are the buzzwords, so those are the words that need to be in the title. And usually she'll let you do things that like remind you of that, because the goal is to read books off of your own shelf that sort of remind you of those things. But she said for this one, she wants it to be specifically life and death. So I don't have a ton of books that fit that exactly, but I have 2 in mind that perfectly fit that, and 2 in mind that tangentially fit that. So I'm going to count them because I think she would let them count, and also because it's me doing it, she's not monitoring it, and nothing happens if you cheat. For the books that definitely fit the prompts, for life, where is it? For life, I have Dante Alighieri, His Life and Works, which is a nonfiction book with kind of small print about, you guessed it, Dante Alighieri. I don't know where he got this or why we have this, but this was my fiance's, and he brought it to our home when we combined households, and I have always wanted to reread Dante's The Divine Comedy, La Commedia Divina, I think. I don't speak Italian, but I've always wanted to reread that because I read the first one and skimmed the second 2 when I was in high school. Sorry, my dog. Do you want out now? Oh my god, hold on. I do want to eventually reread those. They're poems about Dante, who, like, the author. It's called Dante's Inferno, Dante's Purgatorio, Dante's Paradiso, and it's about Purgatorio. I think is the most famous one, and it's the only one that I've actually, like, read to completion, but it's a poem where Dante goes to hell and is shown around the 7 circles of hell, the 9 circles of hell, I can't remember. But he's shown around by a poet whose name I also can't remember now, so I really apologize. I have not read this since high school, like I said, so it's been almost 10 years, which is crazy because I read it my senior year of high school, which was 9 years ago. It's Virgil. I just looked it up. The poet who takes him around as his guide to hell is Virgil, who I guess was actually a poet at the time. I don't know that much about Virgil either. I would like to learn more about that as well. This is one of those areas that I, like, have a looming interest in and then have just never actually learned that much about. So hopefully this book can teach me some stuff about it, but I do think it's interesting how much not this book, but like Dante's works have impacted like the canon of Christianity. But like even the gates of hell are supposed to say, abandon all hope, ye who enters here. That's from Dante. Well, not this again, but that's from Dante. That's not from anywhere else, I don't think, which is very interesting to me. So I'm hoping to learn more about it by reading this. I am nervous that this is going to take me more than a month to get through. If it does, that's totally fine. I just want to have started it in January, and I feel like this is the perfect excuse. The other book that definitely fits, I actually have on my Kindle, which I said that I wasn't prioritizing reading things on my Kindle because they're not taking up space, and a lot of them are things that I wouldn't have been interested in had it not been me sharing this Kindle with my mom and my sister. But The Death of Mrs. Westaway, I hope you can see that. I'm going to put the cover up here, but I want to read The Death of Mrs. Westaway. I don't know what this is about, but I have really enjoyed the 2 Ruth Ware books that I've read. I have another one on the Kindle called The Woman in Cabin 10, which I know what that one is about. It's about a woman on a cruise ship, I think, and something happens where somebody dies, but she sees it through the window, and I think it's the trope of, like, she's an alcoholic, so she can't be trusted, which is not a thing that I love, but I do like Ruth Ware's writing enough to give that a shot. But The Death of Mrs. Westaway, again, I don't know what it's about. I do kind of want to go in blind. I'm very excited to read it, and I hope that I enjoy it as much as I have enjoyed One by One and The Turn of the Key. And then the 2 books that might be a stretch to fit into this buzzword, but that I'm still gonna do anyways because who's gonna stop me, are Club Dead by Charlene Harris, which again is a Suki Stackhouse book that I want to read, and Still Lives by Maria Hummel. If you're keeping count at home, this is the 3rd TBR that this book has made it onto. But this is a mystery thriller about a woman who I believe is an artist of some sort, and she's supposed to have this gallery, or have her art shown at this gallery, where you like have all of your work in the gallery space, and people are supposed to come and like look at it and maybe buy it. I can't remember what that's called for the life of me now, but she's supposed to do one of these, and she ends up going missing, I believe, before her gallery takes place. It's a gala. That's what it's called. Or a gala, I guess, depending on who you are. Let me know in the comments down below. Do you say gala or gala? I say gala, like the Met Gala, but gala apples. So I don't know if that's weird or not, but that's how I say it. But this sounds really interesting to me. Every time I pick it up and put it on a TBR, I forget more and more about what it's supposed to be about, but I need to just read it, get it out of the way, and figure out if I actually like it enough to keep it on my shelves. Those are the books that I'm planning on reading for the month of January. I believe it's 7 in total, which is honestly totally doable. I've had TBRs that have 15 books on them before, so I can definitely read 7 books in a month. And let me know in the comments down below what you are reading. Also, let me know if you've read any of these books and how you felt about them. And I will see you in another video very soon.